Joe Kelly recently talked about how he wanted to literally go back to Spider-Man's childhood. Basically, when he was a teen, like about 12, 13 years old, before he even became Spider-Man. And I was like, yeah, let's go back in there and explore a period of time nobody cares about. Because I'm sure people want to read that. Well, apparently Joe Kelly decided to take it a step further by retconning parts of Peter Parker's history. Where instead of him being this science nerd, apparently he was a beer-stealing troublemaker who was looking at dirty books and stuff like that. It's really stupid, people. Let's just get into this one here. This article from Bongling into Comics. Amazing Spider-Man retcons Peter Parker's childhood. Reveals Bookworm was actually a beer-stealing troublemaker. Ooh, what what good things are they going to do now? Ask particularly anyone what they know about the character of Spider-Man, and after various notes about his powers and a couple mentions of his and MJ's live action Upside Down in the Rain kiss, a given response is likely to mention something about how before getting his powers, Peter Parker was a bookish and angry young man who often found himself the target of his classmates' constant bully. Now, here's the thing, if I continue, as they mention a bookish and angry young man, people have this impression that, when Peter Parker became Spider-Man, he was this selfish, angry, didn't care person about it. The thing about it is that is partially true, but it's not completely true. The thing about it is that, yes, he didn't care too much about stuff like that, because you see, when Stan Lee wrote Spider-Man, he wrote it, and I think he actually made an exact quote saying, he wrote it in such a way that what would I do if I suddenly got superpowers? Now, Peter Parker was bullied and looked down on and basically terrorized by his classmates. He was a nerd, he was terrorized by them. He didn't like them, nobody would. Anybody who's ever been teased would know that, you don't particularly like your tormentors. So when he got his powers, he didn't care too much to do anything to help anybody, because he had been getting constantly bullied. That's it. So when you see it did happen with Uncle Ben getting killed, and you realize that, with great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't mean he wasn't a good person. Because if he wasn't a good person, Uncle Ben getting killed gonna push him over the edge and he gonna become a literal menace to society. But that's not who he was at his core. He was getting bullied, he didn't like them, he was angry about it. Anybody would be. So that's what I'm saying. That is the aspect of Spider-Man that makes him, human. That's the thing about it. So I just wanted to put that part in there. But let me continue. And in a testament to the reach of pop culture, they would be absolutely right in their recollection. That is, unless you were to ask them this question in Post Amazing Spider-Man Volume 7, Number 2 World. Oh, great. They're doing more crap. Spin the wheel on a Spider-Man story from any medium, and odds are good that at some point it will make mention of the hero's less than fun childhood. Wasn't exactly fun. In his first ever appearance in Amazing Fantasy Volume 1, Number 15, the second word bubble of the issue sees Flash Thompson replying to the proposal that he and his friends invite Peter to an upcoming dance with the dismissive declaration, "Are you kidding? That bookworm wouldn't know a cha-cha from a waltz." All of which is followed by a brief montage revealing just how little his mid-tongue high peers really think of him. Yeah, like they said, his first ever appearance. That's it, he was bullied. That's the whole thing about it. Likewise, despite being slightly older in Spider-Man the Animated Series, the show's second episode sees Peter Parker facing the abuse of Flash Thompson, who during a charity ball for the Hardy Foundation dons a Spider-Man costume and attempts to fall back on old habits and physically intimidate his former classmate into turning down the attentions of his date Felicia Hardy. Again, more of that. Same thing in the first issue of the original Ultimate Spider-Man run. In his very first scene, Peter is shown being an easy and accepted target for bullying, which in this case takes the form of a French fry barrage by Midtown High's upper hierarchy. Yeah, this is it here. Literally, they're throwing French fries at him, and he's just sitting there. Mary Jane is all of they're looking over, but she doesn't do anything. And you kind of see that, he's alone. It just kind of really depict here him sitting there alone and the world just blacks out around him and it's just him. That's how Peter Parker was depicted. He didn't have friends. He didn't have them kind of like, he was just literally bullied. I mean, so it made him angry. Anybody would be. That doesn't mean he was not a good person at heart. He was just an angry. Then they go on to talk about here about the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man film, and that in the introduction, Peter Parker is chasing the bus, trying to get it up, and and everybody on the bus is laughing. Hell, even the bus driver didn't want to stop because he found it funny. The only person who spoke up was Mary Jane. That's what happened. So that's basically established that that's what's going on with Peter Parker. Even when I talk about during the events of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, while breaking into Midtown High to retrieve a thumb drive containing the only remaining records of their old high school era science fair project, Peter questions Harry Osborn, "Why do you bring us here? We both hated high school." To which his friend replies, "Remember that time Flash and his buddies cornered me and broke my laptop?" Kinda that's what was going on there. The various mentions of Peter's childhood isolation could make up an entire Wikipedia entry on their own. But suffice to say, this aspect of his younger years has been almost as definitive aspect of his character as Uncle Ben's iconic proverb. Yeah, like I said, you see, the way Peter Parker was depicted as this bookworm who was abused, and then what happened with him, when he got his spider powers and he didn't get to help anybody. He wanted to make some money. And then Uncle Ben, with this whole thing, with great power comes great responsibility. And, Uncle Ben getting killed, and they're really hitting home. It flows, it shows repetition. Each one works to the next one to establish a story. That's kind of the point. But apparently that's not good enough anymore. As such, readers who picked up the most recent issue of Amazing Spider-Man will be forgiven for being taken aback by the reveal that far from a bookish nerd with self-esteem issues, the eventual wall crawler was actually a bona fide troublemaker. So yeah, they talk about how Joe Kelly and artist Pepe Larraz and colorist Marte Garcia introduced a new character, Brian Nerid, one of Peter's rare childhood friends who ends up connecting him with his latest job at Rand Enterprises. Yeah, after going through the whole thing of Peter Parker being a loser still looking for a job. Yeah, that's really interesting. Itself a subsidiary of Iron Fist Danny Rand's larger business holdings. Yeah, because Peter Parker was once a billionaire, but that couldn't stick. Though Nerd is only given a brief amount of page time before a rampaging rhino steals Peter's attention away, the time they do spend together is littered with references to the two having a history of troublemaking, including mentions of a massive stink bomb prank and a flashback to a younger Peter smiling after having gotten in a physical fight. Okay. Sure, this is what happened. Yeah, I covered it in the last one when I reviewed it. Okay. Their shared penchant for delinquency, listen to this, would eventually be outright confirmed with with the latest issue, wherein Peter's mind is shown drifting back to memories of him and Brian sneaking away to get a peek at a nudie mag. Yeah, that's what's going on. So there it is. They're looking at this nudie mag, and Peter's there with their hills and valleys right there. Yeah, and you even have Peter cussing and all kind of thing, and then Peter is ready to. It's really ridiculous. Honestly, it's really ridiculous. But it doesn't go there. It doesn't stop there. It follows up with we're seeing Peter running from the cops after having been caught stealing beer and snacks from a local bodega. So now, not only is he reading dirty nudie mags and having a potty mouth, he's also a thief, going and stealing beer and snacks. I mean, what was he planning to do? Get drunk and eat Twizzlers? What the hell is going on? Are you running from the cops? That's what's going on. And then after that, after being arrested for said shoplifting incident, telling off Uncle Ben and Aunt May when they come to pick him up and fleeing to raise more hell with Brian and another as of yet unidentified member of their Freaktastic Four friend group. Yeah, because you see Aunt May and Uncle Ben here, they're talking about it, and they tell him, he's telling them, what? I didn't do anything, and you see Aunt May, stop lying. Ever since you started hanging with that Nearing boy, I hardly recognize you. Then you see Uncle Ben, who apparently is very big now for some reason. You're lucky Officer Yale and I go back, or we'd be having this conversation at a police station. And then, Peter turns around and tells them, I'm lucky you're not my parents. And then he runs up and she's like, Peter, leave me alone. And then Uncle Ben is, what the hell is going on with that kid? And he goes back to his group of delinquents, and then they're like, screw them, man, you're with the Freaktastic Four now. And he's, well, what are we doing? M80's mailboxes, use your imagination. So now they're going to blow up mailboxes because that's literally a federal offense, so why not? This is what is done to Peter Parker's childhood. You understand me? Joker is literally retconned it because they just can't help themselves anymore. Now they're going to talk about how Peter Parker was under the influence of some hallucinogen from the Hobgoblin, but that doesn't actually do anything because you literally the whole thing with him and the flashbacks happened before he was under that. So that isn't even it at all. As we see the party with Aunt May, who looks like a witch for some reason. Now when you see he mentions Brian Nearing, she gets all cold and stuff there. Further, as is common with comic books in particular, there does exist the good possibility that Kelly has a genuine narrative reveal, no matter how good or bad, regarding Peter's new history. And should that happen, it is so that they will update it. But however, at current, it appears that despite the widespread hopes that previous writer Zeb Wells' exit from the book would herald a better era of storytelling for the web crawler, or wall crawler, I should say, Marvel Comics is instead sticking to their guns and doing all they can to run roughshod all over Spider-Man's character in service of cheap drama. So yeah, that's what they're doing. Because now Peter Parker is a beer-stealing delinquent who tells Aunt May and Uncle Ben that he's lucky that they're not his parents, and then runs off to go and hang with a bunch of delinquents. He steals beer and snacks and runs from the cops. He reads nudie mags and has a potty mouth, and apparently gets into more trouble blowing up mailboxes because federal crimes are really popular now. That's what we want, yeah. Look, this is ridiculous. There is no other way to put that other than this is ridiculous. But this is what Marvel is doing. Like they say, they intend to just run roughshod over Spider-Man's life and act like, yeah, this is what people want. And they wonder why their sales are absolute garbage. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like, be sure to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care.